Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at Ambush Sword. I wanted to do this deck for a little bit but had trouble getting a list together. Fortunately Lemon Force hooked me up with one of his lists and he has said there is a few different variations, but this is one that he has and they all do practically the same thing, so not too surprising there. Ambush Sword does focus on one main key, getting out the early 1, 2, 3 drop ambushes along with the Rogue's Creed and Frontline cards, and then allowing you to finish off with things like Albert or even Angelic Slacker for a huge amount of combo damage. So we'll get right into some games here and we'll catch you there. Game 1 against Rune. This is probably the best matchup I've had. It was reasonably close and required me to get a little lucky, but was quite impressive of a Vagabond Frog play, so I really liked this match. So you're mulliganing for those 1-drop and 2-drop cards really heavily. Even the Vagabonds you want to mulligan for, they're really solid, along with any amulets. So anything of those in your hands you can pretty much keep, as long as you do have a follower to go with the amulets, of course. Double front lines in our opener draw is absolutely crazy. I mean, we've got the Frog, which is going to go amazingly well with front lines, and the boost that everything else gets is just perfect. I debated on playing the 2-drop, but once I saw they were only playing a spell, I wasn't too worried about that being neutral and was more concerned with it being D-shift. So deciding to opt for the boost in damage while also setting up for the Vagabond play was probably the right choice. Freshman Lou, not really a threat. And drawing Rogue's Creed. Pretty much an ideal hand overall. I mean, we've got everything set up. When you do play Rogue's Creed though, make sure you do have Frog in the front. You want to have it from left to right, Frog and then Rogue's Creed. Otherwise, Rogue's Creed will not proc on Frog if you attack with it. So that means you would have to miss out on an attack to have Rogue's Creed actually proc on to the Frog. So it is something to be aware of. So, Vagabond getting its damage in, 4 damage, plus a double boost, and then a third boost from the Creed, giving us a 7-5 Frog on turn 4. So, I make a slight miscalculation with our next set of plays though. I mean, we've got the 7-5 Frog, which will then be boosted even further, but I forget to account for the fact that if they play a ward, I am screwed if I board luck myself with the Rogue's Creed, so keep that in mind when you are playing. Obviously trading here was the optimal idea first, making sure that we're not going to instantly lose the game. But I play the Rogue's Creed and it's a huge risk. I would have been better off not playing the Creed and just kind of leaving it, as the Albert would have at least gave me a chance to clear something and then go face for lethal. Shadow Mage though, very unexpected card, not something you see every day in Rune. Doesn't really have too big of an effect, but it is a pain in the ass ward. So our only hope was to draw into our ambush damage with the fire card, I forget what it's called now, Shield of Flame, sorry. There we go, 6 damage and lethal for a huge Frog. A little bit luck, but probably the best outcome. Match 2 was a very simple one. Haven, you know, you got a pretty good advantage against Haven outside of their one or two clear cards, I guess, for this deck. As long as they aren't going to hit you with all their targeted, untargeted removal, they're just random crap. And as long as their decrees aren't clearing your board on 6 and you overextend, you can pretty much just hit them down in the early game without too much concern. Not the best hand, probably one of the weaker hands you could draw out. Ninja Trainee is great, but only having a Lyriel for turn 2 really feels bad in this deck. I mean, you want something that fits nicely, not something that's going to be weak. Turn 3, we don't really have a play, making things even more difficult. I mean, Shield of Flame is our only decent option. We can get rid of the Zoe at least, and then trade into the face. We do have the setup for the Red Riding Hood though, if we need it, with that neutral on board. Unfortunately, they don't play anything, so not really useful to me. Although I do play the Red Riding Hood anyway, just to proc the board, and I know I can deal at least 6 damage this turn. Which is a good amount of damage. I like being able to deal a good amount of damage. And since turn 5 we can pretty much play Albert or the Kunoichi Master, we've got more than enough options. Although, being a laner, we know they have plenty of healing, so getting them down early is going to be the key to this kind of matchup. You don't see too many Elena Havens floating around, but when you do, they can be a huge problem for some of the aggro decks. Especially if they do have a nice hand, which looks like their hand wasn't too bad, but also wasn't perfect. I'd say it was probably just in the good category. Of course, the Decree, good time to get it out now when we don't have a frog or any other kind of ambush on board. So we can pretty much guarantee that these are going to stick around. I mean, if they have double Decree, that's kind of unfortunate, but we are also baiting out that, so it's not a bad spot to be in overall for this match. Unfortunately, Tribunal, absolute pain. But we do have a Vagabond Frog, a Frontline, and an Evolve available. So, pushing the damage with the Trainee, pretty valuable over, I guess. We get 4, sets them to 9. Albert is 5, Vagabond is 2. Unfortunately, they do have a second Decree. Not the most luck I've ever had. But if we get a little lucky, which we do, Rogue's Creed coming in clutch, boosting these Kunoichi and Kunoichi Master straight through the roof. Both becoming 4/4s, and with Albert being able to deal 10 damage next turn, even a basic heal is not going to be enough. They would need another clear, and then hope they could survive. Unfortunately, you don't want your games going into turn 9 in most cases, but sometimes it works out. Especially against a deck that is trying to stall you. So you've got to keep that in mind when going up against stall decks, that keeping one evolve point for that Albert could be the difference between winning or losing your match. I didn't need to evolve there, but I thought I would, just for the fancy Albert play. And finally, we have Dragon. So these weren't overall the most meta-orientated decks that we were versing, but at least I got to show off the deck and what it can do for per turn plays, which is kind of important, especially since it's kind of interactive, so it doesn't really matter what you play against, you're going to be playing a similar style with these ambush cards. So, turn 1 frontlines, really nice. Can't get much better than that in this deck, honestly. I can't actually think of anything that's better than that for turn 1. Turn 2 Kunoichi, probably also the second best play, next to Shield of Flame, which we also have in our hand. It depends on the matchup too, so. Another kind of play where I've only got Lyriel as an option. You're basically just flooding the board. Build up as much as you can until you can hit face. Dragon's one of those classes where it doesn't really matter what you do either, so as long as you keep build the board, you're going to be pretty set. And Lyriel's good because we can also deal the damage, and it's a forced removal because they don't want that evolve to trade up. So we can pretty much guarantee they're going to eventually trade into it. Blazing Breath just happened to be the best thing they could do. Leaving us pretty well open. I don't like the fact that we're left so open here. I mean, we have our ambushes, not much good to us. The Shield of Flame was the only way to get rid of the Grim without having to sacrifice something major. I do decide to go for the 7 damage right now. With what I've got left on board, well 8 sorry, because the Slacker does give us 1. I just couldn't think of any other option. I mean, Sybil's going to screw us no matter what, so getting that damage in now is probably the best case. Grim, another ward, not a fun thing to deal with. And we can guarantee that evolve on it. They're going to trade into Lyriel, they're not going to leave that up for us to get value out of. Luckily, Kunoichi Master does make an okay turn. Still not the best. But Red Riding Hood coming in clutch gets us that evolve. Especially since Slacker is a neutral, so Red Riding Hood's effect can be proc. So we do get to trade just a little. Not too worried about anything. I mean, they can't easily clear my board completely. They're going to at least leave the Slacker up in the worst case. Although now, in the next turn, they can Bahamut. So I'm a little scared of that. I do decide to go full face and just stock the board. I mean, this sets up for a Dance of Death play. That's why I attacked with the Slacker. I wasn't going to, but making that play was the only option I could think of at the time to actually put them in a really risky spot of playing Bahamut. Rogue's Creed though, making my life more difficult. Unfortunately, I don't really have anything to do except play Kunoichi. I'm sorry if I'm saying unfortunately too much. Little habit, trying to break it, we'll get there. So they do heal, they also concede. They obviously had nothing left that could clear the board. So it left us with a pretty easy match in the end. So that about sums up Ambush Sword. I mean, what else to say? You've seen all those games by this stage, and your main aims obviously are the ambushes. Play them out, boost them with the front lines, boost them with Rogue's Creed, Angelic Slacker, anything that can be boosted. Vagabond is a really key card if you can get it off, because it can be huge and really hard to deal with. Obviously, the more cards on board, the harder it's going to be to deal with Vagabond for most decks, excluding, say, Haven, which has an easy board clear. For the most part, this deck is solid, it'll do the job. I know we've got nerfs either happened or coming up, it depends on when this video is released, and that will obviously change how good this deck is. But I can't see anything in this deck being hit, so if decks are hit, this deck is going to absolutely crush the first week, unless something drastic happens. So if you guys enjoyed the video, if you did, check out the deck list in the description below, hit the like button and subscribe, and I will catch you guys next time. See ya!